Yeah. So Andy, tell me a little bit about how you became to be involved in, with veterans metal finishing.
Sure. So what we did is back in early 2020, my wife and I were deciding what our next chapter was going to be.
Hmm.
I was the former CIO for the third largest telecom in the world over in Airtel Africa. And so we had come back. I was in the corporate world for many years. Prior to that, I was military. I was in the Air Force. And I decided, I wasn't really ready to retire, so I wanted to go back a little bit to my roots and military roots. And so I was looking for a machine shop or a metal finishing shop, and this one became available in the St. Pete Clearwater area. And so we did our due diligence, and my wife and I said, perfect. That owner was a veteran as well, so that attracted me to it. And 80% of their clientele was military parts as well. So again, these connections were all there. And there was a lot of low hanging fruit with regards to growth for this particular company. It'd been around here for almost 30 years. So an old manual job shop. And I felt it was a great opportunity, and it would be the first time for my wife and I to work together as well. So that was going to
Wow.
be a great new
Yeah.
experience.
Great.
He's a retired banker, so it was
Hmm.
kind of an interesting dynamic that we're going to go into. And she'd be running the office, and I would run the business and quality and things like that. So that's
Right.
how we acquired it back in September of 2020.
There you go. Now, so were you targeting, or specifically, you said you were looking at metal finishing. Why was that?
Well, I was looking at either a machine shop. I was looking at something in manufacturing. When I
Hmm.
was in the Air Force, I was working for the testing. It was called Afotech, and I was part of the developmental the test program for the C-17 aircraft. So I was
Okay.
working at what was then McDonnell Douglas, and eventually Boeing bought them out. And I got to see the first six planes built from the first rivet. And
Mm.
so that got me into manufacturing and understanding mill specs and things like that. And so I really enjoyed that time when I was in the Air Force. I did quality assurance in the Air Force as well. So all that I very much enjoyed. And then I went into the corporate world, sat behind a desk for almost 20 years. And I kind of wanted to go back and get my hands dirty again. And so that's why I was drawn to something in manufacturing, either actually making parts or finishing parts.
Right. Gotcha. Yeah. And so what I gather is you came from a very high tech background, right, to something comparatively very low tech, right? I mean, when you took
Yes.
over manual and everything, so tell us about that, and really what course you set out to do for your company.
Yeah, so I definitely, when you say manual, it was it's 30 years old and it never really changed in 30
Right.
years. And so everything, parts were being carried from tank to tank with two arms.
Hmm.
Waste treatment was zero discharge. So what you had was a lot of immersion heaters trying to evaporate liquid as quickly as possible.
Right.
And,
Right.
and of course, trying to use a filter press to compress all the sludge and get all the liquid out of it so it's more cost effective. So a very long in the tooth shop, but had great potential, and it had a good customer following as well. So, and those customers really wanted more, but the previous owner really didn't want more. He was happy where it was, and but I definitely wanted to take it to the next level. That's kind of in my nature to do so. And so we started this an RFQ that I sent out to 8 different vendors. Two of them that were actually overseas, and that was in October of 2021
Mm.
is when I issued the RFQ. And then we vetted those vendors. We visited several shops around the country, references that they had, and then decided then in January which was going to be the main suppliers, because we were looking at a complete transformation. So it was the anodize line, the chem film line, the stainless steel passivate line, waste treatment, water supply as well, because we're using city water. And so we
Mm.
wanted to go to either RO or DI water, and all the equipment and bells and whistles, the chiller, the rectifiers, programmable rectifiers. I mean, we really want, if we're going to do it, we're going to go all in.
Right.
So this is a complete 100% transformation. We are not bringing one thing from the old shop to the new shop.
Right. So you actually move locations, is this correct?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah, actually, yeah. I'm sorry I didn't mention that, but our current location is 5,000 square feet. It's been there
okay.
since day one. We're now moving into a brand new constructed building, 15,000 square feet. So three
Wow.
times.
Okay. Right.
And,
Okay.
and of course, it needed to be larger, and the ceiling capacity in the old shop was 10 feet 6 inches. This one was 26 feet ceilings, so it
Wow.
allows us to put a complete superstructure with hoist assemblies, and tanks of various sizes. Waste treatment, I think the biggest tank is 4,000 gallons. And so it allows us to have that flexibility, and also allows us to grow, because the old shop, we definitely took it to capacity. We can't do any more parts than we're doing, and we can't take any more work than we're doing. And now in the new shop, because of the efficiency and the size, we have now an 8x potential from the old shop.
Gotcha. Wow.
So
okay.
Huge difference.
Yeah. You said your wife was a former banker, right?
Retired.
Yeah.
We used to SunTrust, now it's called Truist.
Right. Yeah. So my big question is that you obviously had you're confident you're going to make this money back of all these, the ROI is going to come back on these improvements, I guess, with better efficiency and costs and all these things that really people don't look at it until, you bring in new equipment and you see what it can do for you, right?
Yeah, and it's not just the potential of the new equipment, the efficiency factor, because time is money, is the old saying, but also talking to our customers. What did our customers' growth plan look like, right? So we have very loyal customers, with very strong contracts with the government as far as military contracts are concerned. So we actually sat down with them and looked at their potential. So even though we were doing anodized type 2, now we're adding also type 3 into the new shop. We were not doing that in the old shop. And why? Because our customers saying, hey, we have a big demand for type 3. We're shipping it out of state. Can you add it to your new shop? So we made that happen as well. And then on top of that, as you know, we also did a strategic alliance with a local partner who was not doing anodizing, but was doing other things that our customers needed, like wet paint and nickel, or lead-less nickel and zinc and things like that. So we announced that officially to our customers 10 days ago, and we haven't stopped. We're trying to meet the demand, because when we do chem film, a lot of those parts get painted afterwards. And then masking as well is a big request. We didn't get that. Our partner does masking as well. And they just happen to be moving next door into another shop 50 feet from us. So, so the timing couldn't have been better for both companies. And of course, that's on the customer side, because they're looking for quality, they're looking for turnaround, they're looking for pricing. But we also were very focused on our employees. Imagine, in Florida in summer, a building with no air conditioning, 10-foot ceilings, and you're running a seal tank at 160 degrees Fahrenheit. It is hot.
Right. Exactly.
And then plus the physical labor of having to move from tank to tank. I mean, we had 51 tanks in our old shop, and now they don't have that physical labor isn't there. They can focus on using the process in their mind and being creative and R&D and things like that, as opposed to being physically exhausted at the end of the day. So we were very focused not just on the customer, but also, how can we provide value to our employees and making it a really great workplace.
Right. And like I said, you mentioned with your partner at EdTech is that, it looks like you're really trying to take care of your customers. You're not having to say, hey, we can't do this. Sorry. You're basically saying, I'll take care of this for you. You'll get the same service and everything that you expect. And it's got to be easier for them, because they don't want to deal with a lot of different people, do they? I mean, they want to.
Absolutely. It's a one-stop shop. So we handle all the invoicing, we handle all the logistics. So they deal with one supplier for soup to nut services, and they're thrilled about it. I mean, they're so thrilled about it that we've been inundated with requests for quote requests. So now we're kind of throttling a little bit to making sure that we got our processes in place, and the communication process is also solid. But it's been extremely well received. And then, of course, in the new shop, when it comes to our capacity with type 2 anodized, type 3 anodized chem film, we do both type 1 and type 2, and all our stainless steel passivation. It's a fully automated system. You press the recipe and it does it for you. They're very excited, because we made sure that new shop was going to have greater capacity. And on top of that, we're transitioning from aluminum racks to titanium racks. Many of them are custom made to the part. So that also makes a huge difference, especially when you're looking at quality, rack marks and things like that, and repeatability. So we went ahead and invested in titanium, not only racks, but special frames that'll support many more parts than we used to in the old shop.
Right, yeah. And now you mentioned you all were zero discharge, and with the new shop, I know you're investing quite a sum for your wastewater treatment. But will you be discharging? I know you mentioned something about 5,000. Yeah.
Yeah, we did.
So
we got our waste treatment permit from the city of Largo, which was a great process. Actually, it was a very pleasant process. A lot of paperwork that we had to submit, but we got it all done. It's going to be we're estimating at peak in a one-shift operation is 5,000 gallons a day. because all our counter flow rinses are going to be changing at a rate of 1.25 gallons a minute. So we're going to have that constant, you want that rinse water to be clean. It helps in the quality of the process and your output of what you're doing. And so we're putting a whole new waste treatment plant in that's going to treat, there's going to be a pH portion, and then there's going to be another that's going to be treating the nickel and the chromate portion. And then, of course, once that's done, then there's a joining of the two. And then, of course, it'll be discharged into the local city. And we're going to have, daily inspections, where the partial flume is next to the waste treatment. There's going to be an electromagnetic meter to measure flow. So we've got all these procedures in place that we've never done before. And we're hiring some local suppliers as well that specialize in waste treatment that are going to double check everything that we do. So we're excited the fact that we're going to have that capacity, because you can imagine in the old shop, it was all by evaporation. And keeping up with the rinse, keeping them clean, was definitely not a challenge in the old shop.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
The guys the whole team loves the fact that we're going through a whole new waste treatment. And on top of that, from a water perspective, it's not going to be the city water we're going to be using in our counterflow rinses. We're going to be using reverse osmosis water. So we have a whole new RO plant that we're installing, and for all our counterflow rinses as well. So that's another value added to quality. And it's all about quality. If the customers are seeing quality, they're going to continue to grow with us.
Right, definitely. So how much actual finishing knowledge did you had before you actually purchased? I mean, had you had just superficial, or had you know a lot about it? Or
That's great. So my undergrad is in aeronautical science, and then my graduate degree was in computer science. But in the military, I did learn a lot about the specs. And there was another test program that I did was called Joint Stars. And what we had done, the U.S. government had bought these old 707 cattle haulers from Kuwait, and they were retrofitting them. And of course, they were very corroded. So I learned a lot about corrosion in that project, and about military specifications and having to refurbish parts using, spec 5541 for chem film, or 8625 for anodize, or 967 for stainless steel, because of all the things that we had to refurbish. In the first part of my career, we were building things from scratch. And so I had a very good understanding, an engineering understanding. And then of course, when we did the corrosion retrofit of these aircraft, that's where I learned about a lot of these military specs that we use. Now, the practical application, the physical, I definitely learned on my own. I learned a lot of it through the Anodizing Council, AAC, and other courses that I've taken, and I've also sent my staff to take as well. And then you start doing some R&D, seeing what works for your shop to dial it in. And also we have some great suppliers who are very willing to coach me and mentor me. I've got a great senior waste treatment fellow who's been doing it for 55 years. He came afford to retire, got a little bored, and then said, "Hey, I could use a job." So I said, "Of course, come on board." And so we've been very fortunate to have some really great people, not just our employees, but our suppliers. They've been just fabulous in our not only in the acquisition process, but in the transformation process as well.
Well, I was going to ask you, I mean, the biggest problem with a lot of people, with a lot of companies, is personnel, of hiring personnel and finding personnel. How many people did you have when you purchased, and then are you expecting to grow that number? Or
Yeah, including my wife and myself, there were 6. So now we have 14. And by the end of the year, we expect to have 20. It's going to be very interesting, Tim, because our problem in the old shop was time, capacity. Now we're going to have an abundance of capacity. So the problem shifts to, how do we feed the machine, right? How do we keep it fed all the time? So we're going to need more rackers and packers and unpackers, in my view, the line, because it's so simple and there's so many mechanics behind it, and the automation and stainless steel and things like that. You don't need as many people on the production line as you do in racking and packing. So we see definitely growth in that area. So we're going to probably go from 14 to 20 by the end of the year. And then also we're working a split shift today. We're going to probably do a single shift, when we go to the new shop. I just don't see the need to go any further than standard 40 hours a week. But the great thing is we have the capacity to go to 2 shifts or 3 shifts if we want to, because of where we are and the equipment, and the nature of the equipment. So so we're definitely employing more people. We also try to focus also on veteran support. My plant manager is a Navy veteran, and my quality control is an Army veteran, and I'm an Air Force veteran. So we're hoping to hire more veterans as we move forward.
Right, right. And when is your expected date to move in? Is it June? Is it?
It's June 5th. I actually, on our website, we have a countdown clock.
Okay.
and
Great. Okay.
that was put there intentionally to put pressure on everybody. So,
Right.
so we're really focused
Right.
on making sure everybody's is meeting the calendar dates. We've already installed the superstructure, which is the main frame from the main line. The rest of the things are slowly arriving this week and next week. The big bulk of it is going to be starting the week of May the 8th. And then we do training for the team June 24th. And then we tend to go live at 7:30 in the morning on June 5th. So that's
No.
how
Yeah.
punctual we are on our time.
Wow. Yeah, I was going to say you got it right down to that. I was going to ask you. I guess being that now you're sort of crossed the other side of the fence. You're the one dealing with people who need the parts. They need them tomorrow. They got to get them done. Before you were sort of maybe that person wanting your parts. What's been the biggest surprise of kind of reversing that? Of understand and mostly I think you understand what they're going through, right? What your customers are going through
Yeah,
as far as needing parts and when they need them.
it's a great question. One of the things that we did in our hiring was I hired a plant manager, not from the finishing world, but from the manufacturing world, from the customer
Mm,
side.
right.
He'd been in manufacturing for 20 years. And
Mm,
so his job was to, produce the parts, but work with finishers. So I intentionally hired a plant manager who knew the customer's pain points. So that
mm,
was definitely one aspect of it. The other thing we did is that we did a road show. We went to go visit our top customers and
mm,
the ones that send us the most parts on a daily basis. And so we went to go see them, ask them what their pain points are, and we actually do now annual surveys to ask them, what services they're looking for, what can we do better, and of course we have KPIs that we implement to make sure we're meeting and we're monitoring all our titrations and quality, quality, quality. And on top of that, one of the things we're doing for our customers is we don't just take the parts and start processing them. We inspect them when they come into the shop because
mm.
just like everybody, sometimes we make mistakes and they make mistakes too and they miss things. So we'll get parts with helicoils in them or haven't been deburred yet or have dents and scratches and it says highly cosmetic on the purchase order. So we are proactive with our customers. One of the things that we're noted for is our communication. So we're very proactive with our customers when the parts come in and say, hey, is this okay? Do you still want us to do it? And so
Right.
that kind of relationship I got from as being a customer myself. These are the
Mm.
things that I'm expecting my suppliers to do. So I'm going to do the same for my customers now.
Right, right. Yeah, definitely. It's interesting. It seems like you're at times drinking from a fire hose, right? You've got, you're taking on a new business. You're making sure you're taking care of customers, bringing new customers. You're planning all this. I mean, it seems to be, I don't know if people told you, you're supposed to kind of be winding down your career instead of, doing all this, but this is a lot. But what's your secret to kind of managing this whole process? Because like I said, you've got to run day-to-day operations, right? You've got to run that. You got to take care of those things. Got to
Yeah.
take care of customers. But then, over here on this side, you've got to be building a brand new structure and getting everything in. What's the secret to managing all of that? I mean,
Yeah, one of the things that I habitually do every evening is I make a punch list for the next day, and I make
hmm,
one that I feel is viable for success. So I usually
hmm,
there's 3 or 4 items on that list, no more, and these are the things that I commit I'm going to get done the next day. Now, of course,
hmm,
I've got 50 things to do every day, but
right.
but I always every day, every night, I make a list. And say, this is what I'm going to get done tomorrow, and
Mm,
that definitely helps. And of course, the other thing that helps is having great team. I
right.
do delegate, but with delegation comes training and mentoring. So I make sure I give my team time to mentor and to train them. We have
Hmm.
regular performance reviews with the team, so we let them know, hey, these are things you're doing great. These are things you can improve on. So having a team that's part of the process is important, and then delegating the responsibility to make some decisions. You can't
Right.
do it all yourself, right? And so you have to
Right.
trust your team. And so that makes those two things are things that have really worked for me really well all my career, and I've definitely implemented them here at Veterans Metal.
Right. Well, it sounds to me like I know you're working with a lot of suppliers, and it sounds to me like you've chosen them carefully. I know you've got Reliant and Haviland and Coratech and all these companies, really nice names in the industry. I guess that kind of was you didn't want to you didn't want to bring in anybody that might cause any headaches or but it sounds like you've really taken the time to make sure you're working with some pretty solid vendors to get this accomplished.
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody that we now have a relationship with, and I'll be very honest with you, it's not the same people when we started, when we acquired the company. Um, they know their product, they know their service, right? So they're not just trying to sell something. They actually know the technology behind it. They know the science behind it, the chemistry behind it, and so that is why we chose who we chose.
Right.
Having that knowledge and that intellectual capital helps us succeed. And if they help me succeed, they're definitely going to grow with me. There's no doubt about it. And so that's
Right.
how we ended up with the relationships that we have today, because of their knowledge of what they do is how we chose that long list of suppliers that I sent you.
Right. And I know you're bringing in Steelhead, which is kind of new to the industry as well, like a year and a half. But these guys seem to know really what you need as far as, like I said, getting rid of paper. Able to know where things are in the shops, know where things are up to the minute where they are, right? Because you got a lot of moving parts everywhere,
Yeah,
and that's like I said, to get away from paper and get to something digital has got to be a huge step, right?
you are absolutely right, because everything I have today was built. I built it myself in Excel, right? So I did all the little algorithms for the scheduling. I built the algorithms for the traveler cards to make sure that because not every process is the same as far as parts are concerned, and so stepping away from Excel is huge. And
Mm.
the Excel even generated my labels for me, the traveler cards for me, the certificate of conformance form. Everything was being done through Excel, and we just by chance ran into them at IMTS, and
Mm.
last I think it was a year ago, and we were trying to search for a partner from a software perspective that was really focused on metal finishing, and we had a great conversation with Jeff and Chet
Mhm.
from Steelhead, and we just did the soft launch April 1st. So we do a
Mm.
soft launch where we're doing a side by side comparison to our old process with the new Steelhead software, and then we're going to go full launch on June 5th when we go live in the new shop. And it's not just the travel cards, but it's also the scheduling process and the quoting process, because our quoting process was also done by Excel, and I had all these fancy algorithms built in there as
Right.
well. And so we've actually been doing the beta testing now with the soft launch for almost a month now, and we'll get through this next month and work out our processes. And what's great about it, Tim, is we're adapting our process. We're not trying to reinvent Steelhead to fit what we were used to do. We are changing to fit what they do because we feel it's best practice, and it makes
Right.
our life easier. And so we're going to be able to use that software. We also use software for our quality assurance for analysis for titrations as well, and we use Chemtrax. And so
Mm.
we have upper and lower control limits, and it tells us exactly what our ads are going to do instead of using Excel, which is what we used to use. So going to a digital aspect is critical for us, and programming as many things as possible with Wi-Fi or Bluetooth monitoring as well in the shop that alerts us to things. We need to transform metal finishing to where uh, we are able to do more for our local customers or even out-of-state customers, and have those things, those monitoring, those things that require the paperwork, the things that require certification, like a NADCAP, or you're trying to be certified with an aerospace company like Boeing or Lockheed. We want our software to do that for us, right? Because it's time consuming. You're doing it manually. So we want to focus on the part.
Mm.
We want to focus on getting the process done. And so by implementing all these new software that we're having in the new shop, it really helps our customers and, of course, our employees in the end.